Hi everyone, welcome to the Daria Strategy channel. I'm excited to have Will Binns as a guest for this interview. He's a core contributor to Base, educator and mentor for onchain builders. Our conversation will give you insights about the Base vision on mass adoption and how it helps to secure almost 14 billion without token. We'll also discuss the competition between optimistic and zero knowledge stacks and the power of AI for blockchain.
Thank you so much for having me today, and it's just a pleasure to be here with you and your audience. I've been in this space, I suppose, since about 2013, started in Bitcoin, just contributing to open source. I've been working in tech since around 2004, and before that was just a young kid that was a computer geek, but getting started in Bitcoin, that led me into Ethereum and have been in the Ethereum space shortly since after its launch, and really since I suppose February 2023, I've been working full-time on Base, an L2 on top of Ethereum, and I think we'll talk a little bit about that today.
Thank you very much. I'm sure that many people know what is Base and what do you do, but for those unfamiliar, please briefly explain what is Base.
Okay, so Base is an L2 on top of Ethereum. If you're not familiar with like the concept of like L1 and L2, essentially like L1 been growing super fast over the last few years, but because it's been growing really fast, there's been a lot of competition for transactions. And the way that that competition is resolved is by transaction fees. And so at some points in time, even now, it's actually very prohibitive to do certain things that really level up the world on Ethereum, like remittances or even just buying a cup of coffee. L2 makes it a lot cheaper to do those types of things. And so the analogy I like to give is if you think about like a blockchain, if you think in parallel about like maybe the shipping industry, if you wanted to purchase a container to ship something across the ocean, that's kind of like where we're going to be going in this space with doing something on L1. It'd be really expensive if you wanted to send
Yeah.
somebody a letter and just put it in a shipping container. But if you use like a shipper that really packages all that together, rolls up all those packages into one bundle, it subsidizes all that cost. And so that's essentially like what L2 does. That's what Base does. And so, for example, if you want to send ETH to somebody, it's fractions of a cent. If you want to send USDC, it's actually free using Coinbase wallet. And so that's like essentially the core benefit that Base unlocks. And in that, really opens us up to a whole new era of applications that are really easy to use that anybody can be part of.
Thank you very much. It's great explanation and great metaphor. So I'm sure that many people can understand it.
I'm a core contributor. I got started originally in the Discord. I showed up right around, I think it was the day that Base launched. I was thinking about starting my own company, like doing stuff in L2, like possibly like a bridge. I was like, wow, this is actually uh, going to be a huge moment, I think, that changes what we're doing in the space. My first role actually on Base that I got hired for was to be a community manager. And so I think at
Really?
that time it was probably like just a few thousand people in the Discord, but then like every day a few thousand more people and then even more. And so it got really just crazy, like all the types of things that were happening really fast. And now, so today, I think there's probably around like 425,000 people in that Discord. But in that, I'm also a full stack developer. That connected me over to all kinds of other things. Like I'm one of the leads on the developer relations team, on the Base core team now, and essentially just do cross-functional work between like our engineering team, the marketing team, the community team, just kind of like a person that wears a lot of different hats. Like there's no shortage of things to do. So it's not just one thing anymore.
Yeah, thank you. So let's talk about mass adoption and next billion users. So probably you know all these stereotypic phrases, I think, because now they became stereotypic. So what do you think about this next billion users on chain? Is it about quantity or quality of user experience and of users in general?
I definitely think it's about quality. When I think about where we're at right now, there's this like kind of cheesy saying that history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And I feel like that's where we're at right now. And I think back maybe like around 2007, we were all in this kind of dumb phone era. We had these like phones that they could all do the same thing. It had like a calculator. We had to use the number pad to send really short messages. Maybe we could play like Snake or something. But then in the context, like in the span of probably about like 6 to 12 months, the whole internet changed. A new internet became available like in the palm of our hands. We saw the iPhone released. We could do all these things. There's all these different types of apps. And so I feel like in some ways, even though like this space is just now a little bit over we're a bit over a decade old, a little bit more. But for some of that, we've been kind of like in somewhat of a dumb chain era. It's really hard to do things on chain. Like for those of us that have been in this space for a while, trying to get like friends or just people we meet to do things, it's really, really hard to like, okay, well, so this is a wallet, this is a private key. Like as soon as you start to go into like these really complex vocabulary words,
Yeah.
a lot of people, their eyes just like glaze over and they're like, maybe this isn't for me. But again, I think probably like in the last year, year and a half, it's actually getting a lot easier to do things on chain. Like that
Hmm.
analogy I was giving before, where like maybe on Ethereum L1, it's just too expensive to send somebody some USDC or buy a cup of coffee. It's super
Yeah.
cheap on Base. It's super fast on L2. And in that, it's also easier because you don't even have to do things like figuring out where to go download a wallet, install an extension. We have new technologies now like Smart Wallet where you don't even have to
Hmm.
install anything anymore. It just uses the
Yeah.
passkey on your phone, your computer, your tablet, whatever. And so we're at a point now where there's all kinds of apps that are becoming available anymore. It's not just DeFi. There will always be DeFi, but social apps like new social networks like Farcaster, all kinds of new novel ways of
Yeah.
everyone around the world being able to be part of an internet that by default is open to everyone. And so that's where I feel that parallel lies, where probably in the next few years there's going to be so many apps that it's almost going to be like, oh, you used it's almost like these days some people were alive, myself, like we had to use payphones. People are going to be like, what, you used to use like web 2, how did that work? When you all need to go to use websites, you had to actually have permission like from the actual
Yeah.
website to do things like, so I think that's all going to change pretty rapidly.
So, what does Base do to achieve this mass adoption? We all saw this video how Jesse asked people like about Ethereum, about Base, and other on-chain things. So, what do you think, and what do you do to achieve this mass adoption?
The most important part of that, especially like what Jesse's talking about, is making it easy to come on chain. So I talked about Smart Wallet just a moment ago. Even that is an example. It's just really hard to just even start doing things with crypto. And so Smart Wallet removes that. And then other tech that we spend a lot of time building out, that the community is also part of. All of this is open source. It's not just like the base core team.
Mm-hmm.
Is on-chain kit. And so as a builder, to put together just a simple web page that you can then use to ideate and experiment with to build out your own app, even 12 months ago, was really hard. The info on how to do that has become very siloed over the last decade plus. We're trying to unwind that to make it easy as possible to start building on chain so that we can get to that point where like the base.org/ecosystem page is literally like the app store for an open internet. So where we really want to focus is improving that UX and making it easy for others to come into the space, taking Web 2. Billions and billions and billions of dollars have been spent over many years perfecting like a user experience to where now like, really anybody, regardless of age, regardless of technical competency, can just get online and start doing
Mm-hmm.
things. It's easy, it's fun. And that's really where we need to go on chain. It really needs to be easy. and it really needs to be fun. These types of apps that exist, they need to be things that people can understand and start using in seconds.
Yeah.
That's where we're really focusing hard, because that's where we think that's where the next billion plus users are going to come from.
What do you think about these friendly fires between optimistic and ZK stacks? Do they make any sense for end users and for mass adoption?
Competition is great, and it makes a lot of sense. Like, we all need to be building in the ways that we feel like are very important, that we're passionate about, making it easier for people to come on chain. In the future, it's not even just like ZK or OP, L1 versus L2, Base versus Solana, Bitcoin versus Ethereum. That's all okay. In particular with regard to the EVM, I feel like probably in the next 5 years, people aren't even going to realize what network they're on anymore. Like, if I call you right now on your phone, I don't know like who you're paying your phone bill to.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
we're just able to connect with each other, and that's the most important thing. Like, we need to make it easy for people to connect on chain with one another, to use apps on chain that we're interested in. And so ultimately, I don't think that's so important to the end user in the way that people improve the tech behind the scenes. I think that makes what everybody's doing better for all builders. So I think it's a good thing, and in no way negative.
Yeah, sure, I agree with you. And I don't understand the people who like just, no, we like this technology, no, we like this, and they like don't go to any compromise or like any collaborations.
It's like as old as time. Like, you go back 500 years, and people are like, "I'm from this place, you are from that place."
Yeah,
War.
yeah, yeah.
It's okay. It's just part of the human experience. But I feel like the people at the core of what we're doing here, like, we're also having fun with each other. It's all just a healthy competition, but ultimately, like,
Hmm.
we're still working for the same things. The existing landscape of this planet that brought about these types of technologies, ZK, OP, the EVM, we all came here because like something's not working anymore. All you
Hmm.
got to do is like start reading the news, and you get this feeling like something's like really messed up. And so I think these like older systems that at the core of them just weren't built for everyone are breaking because it's not working for
Yeah.
everyone. And this planet's too big now to not have something that everybody can be a part of.
Okay, great. So, according to L2Beat, you're on the second place among all L2s by TVL. Like, how did you achieve this goal without a token, and what did you do to have this total value secured or total value locked in 14 billion?
I think it's ultimately, it's not even just the base core team, it's the builders on base. Like,
Mm-hmm.
anybody can start building on base. We're trying to make it as easy as possible to build an open internet with the best apps that anybody can use. And so ultimately, I think that's reflected by that. And at the same time, like, while that's like a big number, it's still like very, 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 very small compared to like what we need to do to unlock the world, to
Mm-hmm.
enable a billion people to start coming on chain and using these apps. Our key goals that we look at is we want 1 million developers, 1 billion plus users. So we still have like a long way to go, and it's almost become like a meme, so to speak. If you see people, if you're part of this community, you'll see people say it's still day one, because it really is. It's almost like the first hour of the first day, and it's still ultimately too hard for people to be coming into this space. And so we're working really hard to make it easier.
So, can you say that Base has more products built on top of its platform than, for example, other chains? Like more
I think
products, or maybe
probably
more builders, more users?
I think it was so for sure. I feel like we're one of the fastest growing networks that exist on chain. We have many, many, many users. If you go to base.org/ecosystem, there's just hundreds of apps, but we don't really like look at it in the sense like, I think as a community, counting this, counting that. We're really heads down, focused on just like, again, it's still too hard to build on chain. We need to make it easier, where the best Python developer, JavaScript developer that's like, I've been here, I hold a little bit of crypto, I actually want to come in and start building with it too. We don't directly like look at like what's this today, what's this tomorrow. We're looking like a year from now, how do we have
Yeah.
millions more people in the space? How do we have thousands more apps? And I think that that's been a benefit for like the base community because people see that vision, and that's I think why a lot of people choose base is because we're not building for the short term, we're building for opening up and unlocking the world because as I said before, I think a lot of the things on this planet unfortunately just aren't working.
So you mentioned Farcaster or Warpcast, and I know that you use it actively. What do you think about the future of decentralized social networks in general, and what the vision of Base on Warpcast?
A lot of these Web2 social networks, they're not really built for the end user in mind. It's unfortunately like pretty well known now, like that a lot of the Web2 individuals that are part of those social networks, which I also still use, we're part of that product. Like we're the product. We're
Yeah.
looking at ads and stuff like that. There's no like real economic direct benefit for our participation. There is a great network effect and indirectly an economic um, benefit. Ultimately, I think it's really important that we build networks that by default are open to everyone. And I think Farcaster is a great example of that. Nobody that's watching this has used it before. Definitely go to warpcast.com, start clicking around in there. It's kind of like a combination of Reddit because there's channels that are like subreddit. And then there's
Hmm.
also a feed that's similar to like X. But there's a lot of folks there that you'll see are actually there's economic benefit to participating in those channels, to being part of conversations. There's all kinds of commerce happening between users, NFTs, like there's also apps that you can use on Farcaster without even leaving. And so I think it's really key to what we're building with like an open internet because in that there is a social layer. Taking again, going back to Web 2, I remember let's talk about Facebook for a moment. Like used to be that you get on Facebook because you wanted to connect maybe with family or friends. And so you're
Yeah.
seeing, you know, what they're up to. I don't know how many years it's been logging into Facebook where it's actually not even that anymore. You're seeing like targeted content based on stuff you might be, it's almost like you're looking at
Yeah.
a feed of curated material. It's not your friends and family or whatever you're interested in anymore. And so I think that's kind of telling the story of where that old antiquated social media model is going. If you log into Warpcast, you know, on Farcaster, it's exactly the opposite. It's still those early days. I feel like it's a just a really cool place to be in. And also recently, the Coinbase wallet in the very near future is going to have its own, it's going to also be a Farcaster client. So you'll essentially be able to be part of a social network and also part of an open economy. It's going to bring those two things together, which I think will be really cool.
Yeah, it sounds great, but like for me now, Warpcast looks like very closed ecosystem for crypto users, NFT lovers, creators, everyone who are quite familiar with Web3 technologies. Should Warpcast be more open to broader like audience?
Yeah, I definitely think it should. And I also, in my personal opinion, feel like it will. I think that this is just the core group of early adopters. Like when, let's take Twitter, for example, before it became X, like when it first launched, had this really key group of folks as like kind of Silicon Valley types, like maybe West Coast folks, just sending short messages to each other. And then it grew way outside of that. Facebook started originally, you know, on a college campus and then other college campuses. I remember there was like that kind of moment where people are like, wait, what? You have a Facebook account? Like I thought that was just for college students. And now it's like businesses, everything's
Yeah.
on there. And so I think it's the same way. It's just part of the growth of
Hmm.
Farcaster. It's a lot of crypto folks right now, but I think it's going to spread well beyond that. And alongside what I was talking about before with it becoming easier to do things on chain, people are going to go on to Farcaster. They're going to be doing things with crypto, doing things on chain without even having to realize and understand how this works behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Like they're transacting, they're receiving like economic benefits for being part of this network. And I think it's also interesting to note that like it was just recently in the news, like X is looking into partnering with like setting up like payments on there. Like they're
Mm-hmm,
also
mm-hmm.
going in that direction where you can go on X and transact with each other and stuff like that. So I feel like we're coming to a head where Farcaster, in my opinion, is in a much better position because it's been built with that type of infrastructure from the ground up. And so it's going to be able to move really fast as that UX improves across this entire space so that anybody can do things on chain without having to understand how it works.
So can we say that Warpcast can be a starting point for new on-chain users, for example?
Absolutely. I think that really with anything on chain, there's always at the core some type of human connection that leads to the on chain one, whether it's a friend or family member. It's like, oh yeah, I have some ETH or I bought some Bitcoin, and then they're like starting to share that knowledge. Maybe it's somebody that just online, like as part of a community, they start seeing people talking about crypto. I feel like with Farcaster, it's really novel in the sense that because you can do things on chain without leaving Warpcast or whatever client you're using through like a Farcaster frame, it really creates like a whole interesting setting for virality that never really existed before in social media. So I feel like that absolutely that's going to be like people will be doing all kinds of things on chain. They'll be able to use different apps without even having to leave the Warpcast or Coinbase wallet or any other app that supports Farcaster as a client.
How does Base internal culture help to achieve your company's goals? Like, do you have any specific frameworks for internal culture or approach?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's also public. Like you'll hear Jesse talk about it. If you've seen him do different videos, Base Builder Fridays and stuff, where we meet with builders in the community. Like we are going for an open internet that increases economic freedom, that's open to everyone, to make the world better, and that's equal, that, isn't just because you're from one country or the other, you deserve less or more. That frankly just doesn't work anymore. That system
Mm-hmm,
is
mm-hmm.
breaking in front of us. As part of that, like our big metrics are we want to enable 1 million developers to build on chain. We want 1 billion users being part of this open internet. We are very vocal and public about that. And the way that that happens internally is that there's really, really big goals on really any team. Like, for example, on the DevRel team that I'm on, like we want to be updating the content on base.org, on docs.base.org every week. We want to be doing workshops to help people start building with like really relevant tech like AI, for example. Just in the recent days, I just did a workshop for the agentic Ethereum hackathon that's happening through ETH Global. And so just being really aggressive in the short term, just small progress, like a few, like something's just even a few percentage points better today, that really adds up over the span of a week, over months. And so that's really what we look for, making that day-to-day impact. And that's how we march towards like those bigger goals that I talked about.
Sounds interesting. Speaking of AI, you mentioned AI, and I want to ask you what kind of tools do you use at Base? I mean, AI tools, and how they help you to grow the network faster.
Yeah, so first off, it's really interesting the change in AI like over the last 6 to 12 months. I feel like the last 6 to 12 months in so many ways across different areas has just the world has changed maybe in advance 10 years. And so like in the context of AI, like internally, for example, I remember like engineering conversations, like Jesse saying, "Hey, everybody, if you're not already using it, think about using Cursor." And so like everybody's using Cursor now. It's just like a huge supplement. It's optional, but it's totally
Mm-hmm.
encouraged. Other things like OpenAI, ChatGPT, it's just really key to like how can we use AI not to necessarily just work harder, but also smarter to be more efficient about the things that we're doing. So, in day-to-day work, those are key tools. And then on chain, Base has just been incredibly like aggressive about trying to make it easy to build with AI on chain. In particular, if you haven't heard of it, Agent Kit is probably like, in my opinion, one of the best ways to start building on
Mm-hmm.
chain with AI, with AI agents. It's completely open source, and it's like I was talking about it in the Agentic Ethereum workshop for people participating like in that hackathon. It's almost like an unfair advantage, although it's available to everyone. Going back a few months, like those types of things didn't exist. And so we're trying to take that AI stack and make it available so that anybody, if they want to come in and build some type of agent where it's trading, it's acting autonomously, it's doing things, earning revenue, like
Yeah.
it's part of this new open internet is also like an autonomous internet where computers can transact with each other. And the best type of wallet for AI agents to be able to do that is an on-chain one. So there's a lot of work going into that. And then builders in the ecosystem, it's not even just like Agent Kit. There's so many apps that have been launched probably just even in the last like 2 or 3 months. I was making
Mm-hmm.
a list out of X post that one of my colleagues made, and I think there's almost like 50 different agentic apps on Base. And that's just like, again, like probably in the last 2 or 3 months. I think there's going to be hundreds, maybe even thousands by the end of this year.
Wow.
So we really just want to try to, first off, have that best in class tooling so that one of the hardest parts of building something on chain is like getting that early adoption, that group of users that are going to help it thrive. And so we want to remove like the technical complexity from using AI, building on chain so that people can actually just focus on the UX. That earlier topic, like we need to make it easy to use. So I think the fact that we're seeing so many agentic apps and other apps even outside of the AI space is a good indication that we're doing a good job of making it easier, although we still got a long way to go.
Okay, great, thank you. So, in addition to Base and Coinbase, you have experience with Binance, with Krock, with Chainlink, and many other big names in blockchain and crypto. How do you manage your time and how to stay efficient and like focused in this fast-growing industry?
It's really hard. Probably at least once a week, I think to myself, like I really suck at managing my time. And so I think probably the area where I've tried to grow personally the most is to try to automate the repetition in the things that I do. And also like there's no shortage of people now, like whereas probably in the last 5 years, there's a lot less people that were in the space to work on things. Now there's a lot more people coming in. They're like, hey, how can I help? Where can I get involved? So a lot of collab now with other people, like helping them get started in the space. It's not really a short answer because it's just a constant work in progress. I was just reading the other day. So the latest thing that I'm interested in is like this idea that 80% of the impact that a person makes with their work actually only comes from 20% of the
20.
things that they're,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I've been trying to think
Pareto,
like,
it's Pareto.
yeah, yeah, Pareto principle. Yeah, so I've really been thinking about that and I want to, like I said, I'm still learning about it, but want to try to get more into like, what are the like 20% of things that I feel like I'm really impactful about that like nobody else can do. I'm not saying it like in a condescending way, but like what do I feel like I'm really good at that for those 20% things could create a lot of impact. So I've been trying to think about that a lot. But as far as like different companies I've interacted with, I think a lot of that just comes from not necessarily being like efficient managing time. It's just spending a lot of time working. I think that a lot of people are like, see the whole crypto, but they're like, hey, how can I come into this space and work in it like you? Or I see this other person, how can I get a job? A lot of it is just showing up and doing things. So I'll work almost every day of the week. I'm always just like talking to people, like prototyping things. And so it's kind of like a almost like I use the like a gym analogy. Like people are like, I want to work on chain. I want to be able to work with these companies. I want to be in shape. Okay, well, the gym is here and it's actually free. It's open to everybody. Like when I came in this space, there was like one chat room that people were talking about Bitcoin in. Now, if you go to like the base.org/ecosystem page, every single app on there has their own community, and all those communities, there's opportunities for people to start getting involved. But not everybody wants to show up. Not everybody wants to go to the gym when they don't feel good, they're tired. And so, like, maybe I'll just hang out and watch. Like, it's, and so that's the key difference. I feel like anybody can come into this space, and if you work hard, you can work with Coinbase, you can work with Base, you can work with any other of these networks. Every one of these networks, Ethereum, ZK, Arbitrum, they have their own community. So if it's important for you, like just join one that you're interested in and get started. Just show up.
Yeah, yeah, thank you. I remember your video when you recommended to open actually the page of the ecosystem on Base website, yeah, and check valuable roles and contribute to those who like the most.
Yeah. And maybe another part of that is like if you go on X or Farcaster, Discord, all around the clock, there's people talking. One thing that's easy to get tripped up on is getting stuck in the talk. There's no shortage of debates, there's no shortage of people just talking about ideas, which is okay. But there's a very small percentage of people that are actually executing, trying to do things that are building something and failing. And so, if in one's own life, they can try to get into a ratio of, I'm going to be, maybe I'm going to spend a little time arguing today. I'm going to spend a little time talking, but the majority of the time, like 60%, 70%, I'm actually going to be trying to build something. You can be one of those people that's spending the majority of their time doing that. You're going to be in the top percentage of people that are making things on chain. And that's going to connect you with a group of people that are really at the edge of what's happening in on-chain tech. The majority of people get kind of stuck in like, I'm just going to hang out on X and talk and scroll, and the next thing, it's already 4 or 5 o'clock. I'm gonna, it's like it's a good opportunity every day to seize the day, start out building, and then kind of size up what's happening later.
Yeah, not just tweeting and not just yapping,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
doing some things and building something new
Yeah.
or improve.
It's also hard. A lot of these networks, Facebook, X, like they don't want us doing anything else. I'm going to show
Yeah,
you this in your feed. Hey, I think you like this. Oh, let me show you more. Like this is related. We don't want you to go build something. Like, don't go into Cursor or VS Code or whatever docs and write out your idea. Like stay here. But that also, I think, like you go over to Farcaster, some of these channels, it's a very builder ethos where people like you're hanging out like, oh, like I went to the gym today, I lifted this weight, and like yeah, I want to go do that too. Like, and so I think it's important to be cognizant of the fact that there's a lot of dark patterns in some of these
hmm
sites to like, no, stay here with us. Don't go make anything. But you gotta shake it off and go out there and build.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, so I know that you teach Bitcoin engineering at Stanford, and you have edited 4 books about coding, about open source projects. Why do you love teaching, and why is it so important to you to teach others and to share your knowledge with new builders?
Well, I think at the core of everything that we do in life, there's like an educational element. And before the internet, that was extremely siloed. You had to go like dig in a library or, you know, um, find somebody that actually knew and maybe like follow them around, apprentice with them. But with the internet, it's like the biggest library and it's free and it's open to everyone. And so like having material out there that anybody that can consume, that they can spend like an hour or however much time looking at and already be at like some level of parity with somebody that's actually spent years working on it, researching it, is a huge unlock. It's just a lot of people don't do it. So I feel like for me, I've really liked the educational side of crypto. Yeah, with Stanford, I wasn't like leading the class. I was like working in association with TAs for a Bitcoin engineering class. But that was really cool because it was one of the first times that a prominent university was like, hey, we're gonna have a class dedicated to like Bitcoin engineering. And so like it's one of the hardest colleges to get into, and they're setting up
Mm-hmm.
curriculum like this kind of validates this technology. And then beyond that, like with say like with bitcoin.org, there's a huge educational side to that where I maintained that side. Like an important part of like using these technologies is being able to understand it, to be able to explain it to others. I do think the technology is going to improve drastically where we don't even have to do that anymore. Kind of like for the internet, you don't need to be able to have to explain what TCP/IP is or what local area networks, wide area networks are, stuff like that. But for the builders, that is still really important. Like the people that are making these apps that the rest of the world is going to be able to easily use. We do need to still have that material. And so having the opportunity to edit, mastering Bitcoin, mastering Ethereum,
Mm-hmm.
maintaining open source projects is another one. I feel like at the center of all of those, like we need to set up on a foundation where people can use Ethereum, they can use Bitcoin, and hopefully in that have the best open source projects that anybody can contribute to. With Base, we want to have one of the best open source ecosystems, whether that's with Smart Wallet, Onchain Kit, Agent Kit, like a complete open transparent book that anybody can say, hey, I see what they did, I think I can change it and make it better. And in that, if and when they
Mm-hmm.
do, it makes all of us better. And so taking that parallel, if somebody's got a dex, some type of DeFi app, social app, if they make that open source and then somebody else comes along and they're like, hey, I like what they did with that dex, I think I can change this and it's going to be better, it's going to make all the other dexes better. I think that should be a key thing. Like part of what's broken in this world is that it's closed source. It keeps people out, it fractures them, it pits them against each other. And so the last note about that, I think one of the coolest things about on chain is like in these communities, there's no genders, there's no difference in skin color, there's no difference in political ideologies, or you're from this one country, I'm from this other country, I don't hate you, I'm here, we're building this together. And like imagine if the rest of the world could do that right now. Like we wouldn't be like rioting and trying to kill each other. Like maybe we'd
Yeah.
hanging out together, going from one place to the other in a flying car or something. And so I think it's really important.
What can you recommend to people who want to build something new? What advice can you give them?
Yeah, so if you want to build something new, probably the two things that I would just tell somebody to do, I would say go, you heard me say this a few times. I think it's good as a builder to have a point of reference for what other people are doing. Like you can save a lot of time by not being the first mover, looking at what the first mover did and taking more efficient steps to maybe even getting farther what they've done. Like with Facebook, they weren't the first social
Yeah.
network. MySpace wasn't the first social network. Friendster before that was, it's like we're all kind
Mm-hmm.
of permutations of something before. So I say go check out the base.org/ecosystem page. There's hundreds of apps there across all types of categories. So if you kind of have an idea of like, I'm thinking about this or that, look and see what other people have done. The other thing I would recommend is go to onchainkit.xyz. It's essentially going to allow you in minutes to set up a template for an on-chain app that then you can modify to connect your idea to. Template is going to already have things built into it like login, being able to connect a wallet, being able to transact, being able to
Mm-hmm.
swap a token, things like identity, like where you don't have to remember somebody's X address. It's actually just your base name, your ENS. Like it just
Yeah.
makes it really easy so that you can focus on the best UX that connects your idea to the audience of people that can potentially use it. And so not having to mess around with that stack, I think is probably one of the most important things. If somebody has an idea, checking out on ChainKit, going and looking at the ecosystem page to see like what else people have done so that connect your idea to it, do it better.
Thank you. It was great. It was super insightful for me personally, and I'm sure that for our listeners, our viewers also. Guys, Thank you for your attention. I leave all Will's links under this video, and you can follow him on Farcaster, on Twitter, and ask questions and participate in the hackathons by Base, because I know that they are really great. You can try yourself and build something new in this decentralized economy. Will, thank you very much.
It was a pleasure to get to be here with you. Daria and I met in Thailand this past year at DevCon. I look forward to hopefully seeing you face to face again this year, but thanks for the invitation to be here.